Hare Krishna. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. I'm first of all offering millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same unlimited prostrations unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So today is a most exceptional day during this month of Kartik, while we are observing our Kartik Parikrama, that our most beloved Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada chose to wind up his material pastimes and again return to those Nitya Lila activities within the spiritual world. And the gifts that he has given to us, especially to the Western devotees in the Western worlds outside of India, is unsurpassable. No one could thank Srila Prabhupada sufficiently for the sacrifices that he made in order to reach our shores and give us this remarkable gift of Krishna consciousness. So it's with the greatest happiness and joy mixed with sorrow at his departure, but still happiness today, because today the whole world can celebrate the greatness and speciality and beauty and personal nature of this divine soul who walked among the conditioned souls for practically 11-12 years of his preaching mission. He left India in 65 and he left this world in 77. So practically 41 years has passed since his departure, and so many things have gone on during that time within his institution, within the propagation of his mission, the continuing propagation of his mission. So many areas of our lives have changed, and we have become aware of so many new aspects of the philosophy that he gifted us. But principally, what has not changed at all are his divine commentaries, his divine words inscribed in his books. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada wrote many letters, and those are all pertinent to time, place, and circumstance. The letters are supportive, but the scripture that he inscribed within the pages of his commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, his commentaries on Chaitanya Charitamrita, his Nectar of Devotion, his Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, his Krishna book, these writings are for all eternity. Prabhupada himself said a number of times that his books would last for the next 10,000 years. This is quite remarkable to consider that Lord Jesus was 2,000 years ago, and we see the effects that one person made in the Western society. And this personality has only had his effect resonating for the last 41 years. And we see incredible results already across the planet. I think in Prabhupada's time in London, there was perhaps one vegetarian restaurant that was inspired by the early followers of Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati, Prem Pradeep Maharaj and Hriday Bon Maharaj and others who came. But prior to Prabhupada, practically vegetarianism was not a popular conception. But now there are thousands and thousands all over Europe. And this is so much supported by and inspired by his teachings and his followers who are propagating his teachings. So the words of the Bhagavatam themselves, they have not changed and they will never change. I think that we can always find Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada on the pages of the Bhagavatam. He described himself that every page of the Bhagavatam there is Krishna's footprint. So Prabhupada himself described that his ecstasies are in his purports. So I'm thinking today to connect with that ecstasy of this divine personality, we can read together something of his purports and hear the specialities of his gifts to humanity. It was late in the night or early, very early in the morning when our Srila Prabhupada would rise and begin his dictation. And he never failed to do that. Every single day. There was never a day, practically, when he was not engaged in that seva. What a monumental undertaking he took to begin to comment on the entire 12 volumes of the Bhagavatam. He didn't complete that. He left some for his followers to complete at the very end, but practically speaking, everything had been said in his commentaries on the Bhagavatam. So this is the main principal gift that I am personally considering today, that Prabhupada has given to us, blessed us with, bestowed upon us, the gift of his Bhagavatam commentaries, his Chaitanya Charitamrita commentaries, and his publishing, of course, of these two granthas, these two colossal books, these two huge books. And simultaneously, as we know, he erected an entire institution across the globe of young men and enthusiastic women chanting and spreading the glories of Sachinandan Gaurahari, simultaneously to giving us these granthas. So I would like to read something of the commentary from Srimad Bhagavatam. I personally was not fortunate enough to have darshan of Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I joined this Hare Krishna movement in 1979 at the beginning of Kartik, but I had got a nectar of devotion in 1974, and I can remember distinctly having a large picture of Prabhupada on my wall in 1974, but I didn't have the sukriti or eligibility to come and meet him at that time. But I've always felt my whole devotional practice that Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is certainly my guide and Shiksha Guru completely. So anything that I have gained spiritually is all due entirely to his mercy completely. He has held me in his embrace since I first arrived, and he has always guided and nourished my heart in all conditions. So how can the practitioners feel anything less than the most utter gratitude for such a personality to walk in their lives? So I'd like just to read a little bit from one commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam. There, any page, I just practically opened at random this morning, and it landed on chapter 4, canto 1, text 17 and 18. So I'll read the translation, and then I'll read Srila Prabhupada's commentary. For myself, I feel that this glorification of Prabhupada will be most pleasing. We can enumerate on all of the mighty deeds that he accomplished during his preaching mission, and they're endless, and the devotees are around the planet today enumerating those glories. But I'm feeling today that his real glory is contained within his ecstasies, within the pages of the Bhagavatam. So I'm just going to read this briefly. So the translation of chapter 4, canto 1, texts 17 and 18. The great sage who was fully equipped in knowledge, this is Vyasadeva, could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. So this is after Narad has appeared to Vyasadeva and inspired his heart with the situation of Kali Yuga. And our beloved Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is commenting on this verse. It's a lengthy purport, but I'm just going to read a part of it, the first paragraph. Prabhupada writes, "The unmanifested forces of time are so powerful that they reduce all matter to oblivion in due course. In Kali Yuga, the last millennium of the round of 4 millenniums, the power of all material objects deteriorates by the influence of time. In this age, the duration of the material body of the people in general is much reduced, and so is the memory. The action of matter has also not so much incentive. The land does not produce food grains in the same proportions as it did in other ages. The cow does not give as much milk as it used to give formerly. The production of vegetables and fruits is less than before. As such, all living beings, both men and animals, do not have sumptuous, nourishing food. Due to want of so many necessities of life, naturally the duration of life is reduced, the memory is short, intelligence is meager, mutual dealings are full of hypocrisy, and so on." So Prabhupada is opening out and expanding according to the time when he was writing, fully aware of the anomalies that were impeding the growth of consciousness on the planet. And he presents with such urgency that the only antidote for this diseased condition of Kali is simply to chant and take the holy names of the Lord. By taking full shelter of the holy names of the Lord, this is the antidote for this age. There is no other worthwhile activity except to chant and remember through the inspiration of Prabhupada's ecstatic commentaries the sweetness and speciality of the spiritual kingdom. So this in particular Prabhupada gave very, very early on. Practically one of the first books to ever be distributed was the Krishna book, the Krishna story book as it's sometimes called. So this is of course, the 10th canto. If anyone is ever confused as to thinking that Prabhupada didn't want to give the highest conception of the Brijavasi's love for Krishna, of what is Madhurya, what is Rag Mag, then they have to consider why he gave the 10th canto right at the very beginning of his preaching mission. He had the first 3 volumes of the Bhagavatam as a foundation, but he quickly produced these 2 large volumes of the Krishna book. One is in Vrindavan and the second volume is in Dwarka. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the chapter entitled The Rasa Dance Introduction. We should appreciate deeply that this is what Prabhupada wanted to give us, this highest conception. With the focus on the highest conception, any material difficulty is going to evaporate, and we're going to come automatically to a higher state of satisfied consciousness in our devotional activities to please the Lord. So this is one paragraph that I'm going to speak in the chapter 29, which is entitled The Rasa Dance Introduction. Prabhupada writes, Prabhupada was reading the commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on these pastimes, on the whole of the Bhagavatam. And he had Jiva Goswami, he had Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he had Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he had all the esteemed acharyas in our line that he would examine their commentaries, digest it, and miraculously make it sufficiently palatable for very fallen people in the Western worlds. This is his genius, absolutely his genius, that he could bring the highest conception to be assimilated and absorbed, digested by the lowest of people. This requires remarkable love, the power of affection, the urgency to want to give this message to the fallen people of Kali. My friend in Australia, his name is Chittahari Prabhu, maybe some of you know him. He picked up one day Prabhupada from the airport and was driving him back in Sydney. And it was around about 10:30 in the morning. And they were seeing on the streets as they were driving into Sydney, everyone was rushing to work. They were driving through a business section. And my friend Chittahari was sitting next to Prabhupada in the back of the car and was thinking, oh, I am so fortunate, I'm here with my spiritual master. I don't have to do any more of this mad rushing around, this aimless running after money that all these people are doing on the street. And then he turned to Srila Prabhupada and he saw his reflection in the mirror of the car, and tears were streaming down the face of Srila Prabhupada, looking at this scene of these jivas hectically racing to their workplaces. And then he turned to Chittahari and said, how can we save them? How can we save them? He said this between his tears. He had this urgency that he wanted to save the conditioned souls above all else. So the antidote for saving them is to hear and cultivate that hearing process of the sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and to purify the heart by the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So I'm just going to read here from the introduction of the Rasa Leela dance. Prabhupada writes, immediately upon hearing the vibration of the flute, they all left their respective engagements and proceeded to the spot where Krishna was standing. While they ran very swiftly, all their earrings swung back and forth. They all rushed towards the place known as Vamsivat. Some of them were engaged in milking cows, but they left their milking business half finished and immediately went to Krishna. One of them had just collected milk and put the milk in a pan on the oven to boil, but she did not care whether the milk overboiled and spilled. She immediately left to go to see Krishna. Some of them were breastfeeding their small babies, and some were engaged in distributing food to the members of their families. But they left all such engagements and immediately rushed towards the spot where Krishna was playing his flute. Some were engaged in serving their husbands, and some were themselves engaged in eating, but neither caring to serve their husbands nor eat, they immediately left. Some of them wanted to decorate their faces with cosmetic ointments and to dress themselves very nicely before going to Krishna, but unfortunately they could not finish their cosmetic decorations nor put on their dresses in the right way. Because of their anxiety to meet Krishna immediately, their faces were decorated hurriedly and were haphazardly finished. Some even put the lower part of their dresses on the upper part of their bodies, and the upper part on the lower part. So it's explained by the acharyas that Yogamaya arranged for this situation so that Krishna could reciprocate very personally with each gopi who arrived, and very carefully, beautifully, gently, sensitively rearrange their dressing for them. And of course this pleased the gopis' hearts no end when Krishna was directly doing that with their dressing. So this is just one description, and of course the whole Krishna storybook is packed with the Vrindavan pastimes. And our beloved Srila Prabhupada, he gave us this right at the very beginning in 1970, 1971. He gave us this Krishna book to absorb our hearts in the reality of Krishna. Also, just a short time later, he gave us the Divine Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are monumental works that were going on simultaneously to his external building up of his mission. But these works are what are going to be there for all eternity. The temples, in fact, will come and go. They will deteriorate through time. The devotees will come and go through time. But these books, these writings, these purports, these commentaries, they are there for all time. So if we can connect with that eternity of Prabhupada's gift, then I think we've really touched the heart of what Prabhupada wanted to give to us, to appreciate this clearing of our ignorance by becoming absorbed in these wonderful literatures that he bestowed to us. So this is a commentary from the Adi Leela chapter 4, and I'm reading from text 106, just to hear Prabhupada's mood and to clarify the height of what Prabhupada gave us. I read in the Srimad Bhagavatam initially, he was describing the age of Kali. Then I just read in the Krishna storybook how he was giving us the antidote of hearing about Rasa Leela and the sweetness, the specialities of the gopis' Sharanagat mood. They're completely surrendered to Krishna in subservience to his calling the flute, dropping everything. They had no care for anything. There's no greater Sharanagat demonstration than this in existence, what the gopis gave up. Besides those activities, of course, we know, they gave up their idea of shame, of respectability, of chastity. They had to give up all this, which was even harder to give up than simply feeding their babies or milking the cows. But they gave all this up to run to Krishna. So Prabhupada has explained and given us all this. And in text 106 of Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 4, he's saying, the translation is, the heart of Lord Chaitanya is the image of Radhika's emotions. These feelings of pleasure and pain arise constantly therein. Now Prabhupada comments, Lord Chaitanya's heart was full of the feelings of Srimati Radharani, and his appearance resembled hers. Swarup Damodar has explained his attitude as Radha Bhav Murti, the attitude of Radharani. One who engages in sense gratification on the material platform can hardly understand Radha Bhav, but one who is freed from the demands of sense gratification can understand it. Radha Bhav must be understood from the Goswamis, those who are actually controllers of the senses. From such authorized sources, it is to be known that the attitude of Srimati Radharani is the highest perfection of conjugal love, which is the highest of the 5 transcendental mellows. It is the complete perfection of love of Krishna, Prabhupada is explaining very clearly. These transcendental affairs can be understood on two platforms. One is called elevated, and the other is called super elevated. The loving affairs exhibited in Dwarka are the elevated form, and the super elevated position is reached in the manifestation of the pastimes of Vrindavan. The attitude of Lord Chaitanya is certainly super elevated. This means that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is representing fully Madhurya Bhav of the residents of Vrindavan. So Prabhupada is just in code practically making a comment of the distinction between Aishwarya and Madhurya, which we've been talking about regularly through our parikrama. I'll continue. From the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an intelligent person engaged in pure devotional service can understand that he always felt separation from Krishna within himself, Mahaprabhu, in the mood of Radha. In that separation, he sometimes felt that he had found Krishna and was enjoying the meeting. The significance of this separation and meeting is very specific. If someone tries to understand the exalted position of Lord Chaitanya without knowing this, he is sure to misunderstand it. One must first become fully self-realized, otherwise he may misidentify the Lord as Nagara, or the enjoyer of the damsels of Braj, thus committing the mistake of rasabas, or overlapping understanding. So he's explaining the danger. Unless we can purify our consciousnesses, then how will we understand that Mahaprabhu is in a mood fully of Sri Radha, wanting to enjoy her lover Krishna? And what is that mood of separation that Mahaprabhu is experiencing, that Mohan and Modan, Mahabhav, where he experienced in Puri? In Navadvip, Mahaprabhu was not experiencing to the same degree those separation moods. That Vipralamba Bhav is manifest principally in Puridam. So all of these subject matters have been illuminated by the following acharyas coming after Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He has given everything in his books. But without the illumination of Shiksha Guru, for myself in the form of Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, how could I begin to really enter these commentaries deeply and significantly? So we need both. We need Srila Prabhupada's words to focus and guide us, but we also constantly need association of higher sadhus, of higher elevated personalities who can illuminate all the writings that Prabhupada has given us, because we won't understand without the light of Shiksha. For example, in the 4th verse that I've quoted many times, that Anapita Chirim Chirat Karunai Vartinokalo Samadavaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam. This Shriyam, our beloved Prabhupada translates as treasure. This is what Mahaprabhu has come to give. He's come to give this Swabhakti, own Swabhakti, Krishna's own bhakti, Shriyam, the beauty of Krishna's own bhakti. What is the beauty of Krishna's own bhakti? Prabhupada has told us treasure. We might think of treasure like a treasure chest, stocked with jewels and so on. But what is the nature of that treasure? My beloved Gurudev Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj has told us very clearly that treasure is Manjari Bhav. So this Manjari Bhav is our goal. It is our treasure. And Prabhupada has written about it extensively in his Upadeshamrita, in particular in the last 2-3 verses of Upadeshamrita. He brings us right into Radha Kund, and he gave us this book, this nectar of instruction, very early on. So we should never think or minimize for a second that Prabhupada has not given everything in his books. He's given more than everything. But who is qualified to understand it without the light of Shiksha? So today I'm just expressing my gratitude to Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada for giving me all this guidance in my fallen, conditioned state of this birth, that he's guided me out of this condition. He's purified my consciousness with the light of knowledge. He's purified my dull ignorance to some degree. And it's all due to his entire mercy that I'm able to remember anything or hear anything in connection with Radha and Krishna. Previously, I was completely hedonistic, only wanting to enjoy my senses to the max. I thought of nothing else, planning every moment of my life how I could enjoy this world. And Prabhupada, he writes about this directly in the initial verses or initial chapters of the Bhagavatam in his purports. Almost every purport, he's talking about the Mayavads. Who are the Mayavads? Those people who want to enjoy Maya. Me. I am the Mayavad that he is referring to. Any attempt to enjoy matter is always going to be frustrated with pain and suffering. We are pure spirit souls. We can only relish pure spiritual topics. The soul can only relish that. It cannot relish anything in the material realm. And this divine personality has descended, and he's opened these doors of light for so many lost, conditioned souls wandering on the planet. Not only at the time of his preaching, but for the next 10,000 years, he will be performing the same activities through the words and pages of his books. So we are most fortunate to be in this line and to be blessed by some influence from his elder disciples who are also imparting this message to us and encouraging us to go deeper within to his writings and hear carefully his instructions, how he is directing us to spend our time chanting, reading, hearing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. This is our process, quite simple. So to glorify Prabhupada, I can't think of a better way today than by glorifying the gift of his writings and teachings to us, which will be there for posterity. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to speak something during this month of Kartik. Generally there's not so much time to speak, but I'm very fortunate having this facility of sending these audios around. And I hope all the devotees themselves are inspired and encouraged today by the gifts and a feeling of gratitude and thankfulness for our beloved Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's presence in our lives.